Good day, welcome to our channel. This is our second video and it's the history of Magobe, Letsatsi in brackets Southern Africa. Today we're gonna take a deep research further and we're gonna look at maps that's been documented in ancient, not the current maps. But before we go there, I'd just like to emphasize on the following. Due to our history is so confused and misleading and lots of myths out there. So our history has become distorted or like a cold case. The whole historical concept is the same as that at a forensic investigation because you are comparing something that are disputed against something that is known. And in this, with history, it's basically the same thing. We have usually an account or an event that is disputed, and we have a document that are known. So what's going to happen here? Whatever it's been said, I will undone and restore the complete original history. Now, what we're going to do now is we've got history, like I said, and then what I also have with me today is a Bible or Bibles. Now, what does Bible have to do with history? As people will ask. Well, in the Bible we say basically our Father, or we're looking for our Father and searching for our Father. And in history, we say ancient fathers, which also refers to our Father that we search in our Father. In the Bible, they have prophets that prophesied the word of God and tell the kings about the future. And in history, we have what we called traditional healers or tribal leaders. And this person also does the same thing. He also advised the king on certain events, and if there's drought, then he pray for rain, which is basically the same thing. So now I'm going to ask you, did this history that we have, was it turned into a concept of a Bible? And what happened? The names that we know of our kings has now been transferred into something that we don't know in the Bible. Now you have your King Solomon's, and we have our kings, which is now, if I may say, Mzilikazi, Shaka, Ratswanes, Magobes, and all these other tribes. Now, what I'm first going to do is I'm going to read out of the Bible. Right, the Bible in English, it's Bible. So our prefix is the E. And in Afrikaans, let's say the Bible, Bible, ELE. Now, our prefix is the letter Y. From the I, it goes to the Y. Now, if I read in the scripture here, I'm going to take one scripture, which is Songs of Songs, which is a Songs of King Solomon. It's the most beautiful songs, and what I'm going to do is I will read from Songs chapter 1 verse 5, and it says, "Woman of Jerusalem, I am dark but beautiful, dark as the desert tents of Kedar, but beautiful as the curtains as Solomon's palace. Don't look down on me because don't look down on me of my color, because the sun has tanned me." Now, in this verse, the Bible, it says Solomon is black. I'm going to test the theory again, and I'm going to another Bible. The same verse, Solomon chapter 1, verse 5. And here it also says, I am dark but beautiful, O woman of Jerusalem. Dark as the tents of Kedar, dark as the curtains of Solomon's tent. Don't stare at me because I am dark. The sun has darkened my skin. The same thing again. Now I'm going to take another Bible. And in this Bible it says the New World Translation of the Holy Scripture. Solomon chapter 1 verse 5, and it reads, a black girl I am, but commonly, O your daughter of Jerusalem, like the tents of Kedar, like the tents of clothes of Solomon. Do not look at me because I am swarthy, because the sun has caught sight of me. Now swarthy is spelled S-W-A-R-T-H-Y. That's in English. And in Afrikaans, it will come to swart. S-W-A-R-T. That's what it means. It's the person of a dark complexion. Is swarthy the same as black? Yes, it's the same as black. Swarthy has the same root as the German word schwarz, which is spelled S-C-H-W-A-R-Z, meaning black. Not necessarily black, but definitely tending in that direction. It's used to be a code that was used when the people wanted to hint that someone had a black ancestry. Now that confirms again that Solomon was black and the Germans are from a black ancestry. Now we don't know why Hitler has killed all the Jews. Maybe he knows what we don't know, that those people were the fake Jews.
Are modern Jews descendants of the tribe of Judah, one of the sons of Jacob? Are European Jews really Gentiles whose ancestors converted to Judaism? The facts are clear now, that most of those who call themselves Jews are not descendants of Jacob, whose name was later changed to Israel, and therefore have no claim to the land of Palestine. The October 29, 1996 New York Times, in an article entitled Scholars Debate Origins of Yiddish and the Migrations of Jews, states, the Eastern European Jews were not really Semitic, that they were largely descended from the Turkish Khazars, who converted to Judaism in medieval times. Therefore, modern Jews have no blood link to the biblical Israelites. Jewish historians have established that at least 90% of all Jews come from a Turkish mix of people and are largely sourced from the Khazar kingdom. The Jewish scholar Arthur Koester provided overwhelming evidence in his book titled The 13th Tribe, showing that in the 8th century, Khazaria, which was greatly made up of the Turkish mixed people known as Khazars, converted to their national religion of Judaism, which was based on the Babylonian Talmud. He states in his book that the Khazar Empire, which in the Dark Ages became converted to Judaism, Khazaria was finally destroyed by Genghis Khan and his Mongol hordes, but evidence indicates that the Khazars themselves migrated to Poland and formed a Western Jewish community. They eventually migrated to other places like Germany and Russia.
Christian churches and the general public have been deceived. Many Jewish historians are now admitting that they are not the true Hebrews of the Bible. And how can they be returning to the land of Israel when they were never there to begin with?
White people in Africa or Palestine 2,000 years ago. The medieval Europeans assumed that Jesus Christ, his mother, and the other original Jews looked just like the Europeans, which is why you can find Jesus with blue eyes and green eyes, and why his mother has such white skin.
Hey guys, the gig is up. I'm not the real Jesus. As a matter of fact, the fella's name wasn't even Jesus. He had a Hebrew name. There wasn't a letter J until a few hundred years ago. With that being said, I have fooled the whole world into the biggest sham of all time. The name and identity of the real fella has been taken over by me. There are thousands of paintings of Jesus and they don't even come close. Jesus was the creation of the Roman Catholic Church, which served to replace the real fella who probably looked more like Morgan Freeman. But who cares? The truth doesn't matter, as long as you pay your tithes. Gotcha.
And often called cultists or anti-Semites. The 13th tribe proves beyond doubt that modern Jews are not biblical Israelites. Every church member in America should insist that their pastor investigate these claims. Henry Ford, founder of the Ford Motor Company, assembled a staff of experts to research the origin of European Jews who had been entering America in large numbers since the 1880s. Ford's research cost him several millions of dollars, and in 1923, he published the results in a 4-volume work titled The International Jew. It was Henry Ford's conclusion that the Jews were not descendants of the biblical Israelites. Ford further proved that these Jews, committing all sorts of crimes while under the cover of being called chosen people of the Bible, were rapidly taking economic and political control of America. Henry Ford also claimed that the Jews had secretly gained control of most Protestant seminaries and Christian book publishing houses and had been able to remove almost all criticism of Jews from Christian literature.
It's possible right now. When a person documents history, your beginning must be correctly. You can't start by Vasco da Gama. You can't start by Bartholomew Diaz. You can't start by the British. You can't start by French. Your history will be incorrectly. You need to start from the beginning. What I've got here, I've got a book by Professor Bykard JP, and its title is Gold Mining on the Witwatersrand. Now, this professor have put this book together for the Chamber of Mines. And JP Town, JP Street is named after this professor. And in chapter 1, he says history. He starts with history. In the early African historical backgrounds, he stated, up to c. 1200 to c. 10,000 BC, African was joined to Europe by land bridges across the Straits of Gibraltar and through Italy, Sicily, and Malta. The present Mediterranean Sea areas consist of great fertile valleys and 2 inland seas. Neanderthal, near man, c. 40,000 BC to c. 1800, and later Neolithic man, the first true man, Homo sapiens, who replaced the Neanderthalians, crossed over the land bridges into Africa and spread south as far as the Cape of Good Hope, leaving traces of his migration many places. Gold gathered from these streams have been found in Neolithic graves. Now, what they mean is the people, if I've got a gold earring, a gold bracelet, or whatever bracelet, diamonds or whatever, the people bury you in the grave with your belongings. That's where we're going to look at Monotopa, where the graves were found with golden rhinos, golden bowls, and golden bracelets. Now, what I want to emphasize here, you remember the Homo sapiens that we say we were apes. Now, there's a professor, Darwin. They've excavated somewhere in Potchefstroom and they found this skull, based on a skull. And then they give it to this Professor Darwin. And then what he does, or what they have done. They went somewhere, go fetch a body, put it to the skull, not in the same place where they've dug. They went to go fetch feet somewhere else and they put it to this structure. They find hands in wherever and they put it to this structure. And they call this structure Boscopoid. And they say it's you and I. Something, fragments that they've put together. And it's practiced at universities. Which is invented nonsense. The same like this, it's nonsense. Now, the early historical civilization came into being after the Mediterranean Sea has been formed, and geographically the land and the sea in this area assume its present configurations. Now, I'm not going through the whole thing in this book. I'm going to jump so that we can go through it as fast as I could. Gold sought from early times. The first historical references is found in the 6th dynasty. That's c. 3000 BC, when gold from the Upper Nile is recorded. In Menes code, that period, the ratio of the value of gold to silver is given 2.5 to 1. I don't know what did it mean by that. By the 14th century BC, probably, certainly by the 12th century BC, gold was fairly generally used as a currency in countries between Egypt and India. Ships have been made by Sumerians, c. 700 BC. The first pictorial representation of a ship dated from c. 3900 BC, and by 2000 maritime power. They established Utica on the north coast of Africa c. 1200 BC, and about 800 BC Carthage, which is modern day Tunisia. Now, the Sumerians is people on the coast of Africa. In ancient times, these people have already know how to build ships, to build boats, because what we do is, I've got a beautiful map here at the back of me, and this map, it shows the migration of the people there from the equator, the Bushman, the Hottentot, Bakwena, Bangwahwatu, Bangwaketse, everybody coming down from the equator. Inlands in the interior, which is nonsense. The people have boats. When they traded or they bartered, they come down by the sea and they traded whoever is there, and they traded whoever is there, and that's how they sell their goods around here. So our people were trading there, and then they go home wherever they are from. So this was civilized people that was living here. All here along the coast is where the people traded. They didn't trade inland, they traded on the coast, for it's easier for people to move. Even they can try a barter within the Nile River, because the Nile River is coming from Egypt right down into southern Africa, as we have stated now. So now this map was sketched by G.W. Stowe in 1880, and it says Central and Southern Africa, which is a beautiful map. It even shows the Difikani War and how the Zulus went in and all the fightings here and how people moved, the Portuguese coming from there, from Portugal into Africa, into the East Coast, the Dutch, the British, and everybody coming in later. Why is it only they have boats and we didn't have? How did we trade? How did we move around? We can't move into the interior, because from here I move into, or our ancestors move into another territory, and it's going to be dangerous for them. Because why I say so? They've got herds. that they need to travel. There's old people, there's children, so there will be war amongst these people. How are you going to cross over these rivers that's so deep? If you look at the migration of the wildebeest, when they go into the ditches of over the rivers, they get killed by those crocodiles. The same will happen to his herd and his people. As soon as there's a splash, the crocodile will come and it will kill them. And with that, if you've got there your herds, who's going to follow you? Your lions, your hyenas, your wild dogs, and whatever was living in that period of time. So they didn't go there. I don't mind. It's true. Short distance, yeah, they can migrate, but not from the equator. It's impossible. It's impossible. You live there. If you want to trade, you come down here and you barter. So that's the correct history, how it should be. And now we know that the Sumerians are the ones that have built the ships. And Carthage, its original name, or today the name is Tunisia, and Tunisia was Carthage before. From these cities, the Phoenician traded with the inland races across the Sahara Desert and considerable stores of gold. So the Phoenicians didn't come inlands. Like I say, everybody's here on the coast and they traded. And the Phoenicians didn't say they discover. They say they were trade. They traded with the people here on the coast. Right? They were trading with the people here on the coast. Now, Herodotus, C430 BC, tells of the commission given by the Egyptians, Nisho, to the Phoenician traders about 604 BC to circumnavigate Africa. They also got it. So the Greeks and the Phoenicians, they already know. And they also, when they came here, they documented the map. They recorded the map. And have taken them, I think, 3 years to record the map, which we now call Africa, but we'll come back to that. Ancient time already, they have documented our continent. So our history is ancient. The Phoenicians probably never saw a gold mine in Africa. They contained their gold by barter. The Greeks gained their gold first by loot Alexander the Great. It's recorded to have taken 30,000 pounds of 30 million pounds worth of precious metal as plunder, but later they mined for gold in Africa. There it stated again. The people don't go into the interior. They didn't know where our ancient people take out the mines. They only found it at the coast where they started to trade. And as you can see, they mention now already Alexander the Great, the Greeks. So that means it's way before British, Dutch, and French came to our shores. Now, our people, the Greeks, historian, write about 200 BC, give a vivid and somewhat description of gold mining in Egypt. He speaks of breaking of the rock by fire setting, by the use of iron chisels, not by skill, but brute force. Now, there it refers already. And this gold that comes out here is 97.7% pure. So our people didn't just mine the gold, they know how to melt it. To make the bangles, they've made fire. We know what was fire. They've made fire, they've melted. We have like funnels where we put it in and we melt whatever iron ore, gold, copper, we have done it already. There they stated it. So they can't come here and say they have discovered and they've brought civilization with us, and civilization, we were uncivilized. And there it demonstrates we had chisels. So we know what was iron. So this thing of Stone Age, Ice Age, and I don't know what age, it never happened. We're already familiar with everything. The Romans, who followed the Greeks as leader of the then known world. So when the Greeks have recorded this, they share that information now with Roman. So now it's a known world to the Europeans, and they followed the Greeks. So the Greeks must come and show them where's all this, where they can trade here. In 14, when they came now, the Greeks and the Romans, when they came, in 146 BC, they took Carthage world. They took Carthage with its great wealth. They've now taken Tunisia. They've conquered now Tunisia and its people. And there they established now the imperial province of Africa. Today, the Arabs call Tunisia Africaia. Now it starts to change. Only Tunisia is called Africa, not the whole Continent. We're going to iron on that much later. But what happened here is the Romans, they were the imperialists. They established their first conquer country, Tunisia, as the imperial province of Africa. To this day, the Arabs call Tunisia Africaia, which is spelled Afrikayah. They worked many mines in Europe, but it is probable that the gold they obtained from Africa came by barter through the chain of Oasis. In the central and the western Sahara, from the upper Nile in the east, the country south of the Sahara was probably quite unknown to them. So now we have that section there. Even before the Christian era, while the north coast of Africa was in the hands of the Romans, can you hear? Even before Christian era, while the north coast of Africa was in the hands of Romans. The Arabian ships passing down the Red Sea reaches Madagascar and the Comoro Island. It is probable that these pre-Islamic Arabs actually reaches the Zambezi, and it is at least possible that they discover alluvial gold of Southeast Africa. That means when they came in the east, which is the Red Sea also coming into the sea on the side, so they have already traded there, the Romans, long before British, France, and Germany. Now they have now the continent on a map. By 25 BC, the Red Sea route to the east was made safe by Augustus, and with the discovery of the southwest monsoon, systematically trade with the east by sea was made possible. There again they say when they found the place, it was possible from them to come from Europe to trade by sea. Nobody knows where's the mines in the interior. Nobody knows Where's the kraals of them? They only come as far as the coast. With the fall of the Roman Empire and the invasion of the Visigoths, some 8,000 Vandalist European barbarians, settled on the north coast of Africa in 429 AD. Little is known of their history or their context with the interior. In 604 AD, Egypt fell to the Muslims. Muhammad 570 to 632 AD in the last greatest movement of the Semites. Now, that section, let me read it again. With the fall of the Roman Empire under the invasion of the Visigoths, some 8,000 Vandalists, now Vandalists means barbarians, settled on the north coast of Africa in 429 AD. Little is known of their history or their context with the interior. In 644 AD, Egypt fell to the Muslims. Muhammad 570 to 632 AD in the last greatest movement of the Semites. That means the original people in Egypt was not Muslims as it is today. It was our people. So there's a shift here. There's an identity theft here. Now, according to them, when they do excavations, they only do excavations in the pyramid. So if they found one of their Tutankhamun kings there, it will date 4,000 years. If they could, why don't they excavate outside of the pyramid and they will see what they will find? Because now, if Egypt is the oldest country, why down here we find skeletons and everything that's ancient, that's 1,000,000 years old, and that's 4,000 years old? Something is wrong. Something is wrong. That's why they say archaeologists have done a sin. People get paid every 2 years, 200 years. They look into the pyramid, they go fetch one of their ancestors. They don't go outside. And they feed us this lie of a history. By 700 AD, the whole of the north coast of Africa was under the Muslims. By 750 AD, the whole of the north coast of Africa was under the Muslims. Now they have conquered our people there. Now it's under the Muslims. And you now, you dark, you say you're a Muslim. That's why we have the countries up there and down here, they're fighting Muslim, Christianity. Now if we want to look first, who was first here, then this is the right book for you. For over 1,000 years, they've conquered us. Now they are Muslims. Then 664 to 1017 AD, then they change their identity. Now they become Turks. And in the 1017 to 8 AD and 1506 AD, and finally, they change again their identity. They come now the Ottoman Empire. Now they've got like 4 identities. First, the original people, Muslims, Turks, Ottoman Empire, who plays a most important role in the history of Africa. And those that have survived from the original people, and this Muslims is now superior, the original people lost their culture, lost their mother tongue, and they've been overshadowed by the Muslims, Turks, in the Ottoman Empire. In the whole twist of history is now they are the originals of my land, on your land. So I'm going to leave a little bit there, and I'm going to just fast forward a little bit. Meanwhile, during the Dark Ages, Europe was in a state of chaos and confusion and made little or no contact with Africa. They didn't know there was a place like Africa. Now, in the 15th century, Portugal, with the fine harbors facing the Atlantic, became the pioneer in many of the maritime arts and took lead in exploring of Africa. Now only the Portuguese came and they documented now this history. Now they come, they record their own map now. So Greeks got one, Romans got one, the Portuguese now got another one. Now, whatever the Greeks and the Romans has been recorded, they now recorded their history now on here. Now it becomes discovered. With their decks, with the deck ships, so it means it's got maybe at the bottom for slaves, another one for slaves, then the deck on top. Ships of 2 tons and 3 or 4 masts, with great superior of those of the Arabs. The Portuguese early in the century took Sutia on the north coast. I don't know what area is Sunia, Sutia, because like I say, everything has now changed. Now, what's happening to cause confusion? I'm talking now about Carthage. Today, you don't know what is Carthage because you only know Tunisia. Now, that one comes, then he changed Tunisia, he changed it now to Sutia. And that one comes and he changed it now to Mosina. And that one comes now, he changed it to Johannesburg. So everyone that comes here, document or record their own. They didn't ask the people. They do their own thing. This is what it says here. Early in the century, took Sutia on the north coast of Africa from the Moors and began a series of voyages which were to culminate in the rounding of the Cape. Now the Moors are also sort of a Muslim and an Arab thing. Now they taking the country from there. The history is now destroyed and they also become maybe Portuguese. Now, with that, all these people now been conquered as they go along. So now the people's identity change, the language change, and they become something else and they've lost their mother tongue and they speak now Portuguese.